You are listening to The Diary of a Wannabe Writer, presented by Richard A. Boxshall, in which I chronicle my life and attempts to become a professional writer by, doing some writing daily, hopefully. Hello, it's Tuesday the 13th of August 2013 and you're listening to The Diary of a Wannabe Writer, and I've had a much more productive day than I actually would have thought possible today. So if you told me yesterday I would have finished chapter 34, I probably wouldn't have believed you. As I said yesterday, I had a very productive day. I wrote about 2,500 words. And today I met with Tani, my friend T.G. Campbell, who writes the Bow Street Society mystery series. Go to bowstreetsociety.com for more information. And we basically had a bit of a catch-up. Weirdly, she's working on chapter 33 of her book, and I'm working on chapter 34 of mine. And I kind of looked at the scenes that needed writing, and I'd already really enjoyed it. Talking English, Andrew, Richard. I'd enjoyed writing what I wrote yesterday, and today I literally just dove into it and just wrote. And we sat in a coffee shop for 2 or 3 hours, I think. Had some tea, and she wrote her book, and I wrote mine, and I was sitting there looking at what needed to happen in chapter 34, and I was expecting it to end up being about 8,000 words long, but then I kind of looked at it and thought, well, actually that doesn't need to be that massive a deal, and I suddenly realised I was nearly there and I could actually finish it today. So I did. I wrote about 2,500 words today, which means the chapter in total is about 6,000 words. And I know exactly what I need to do in chapter 35. Chapter 35 is basically 2 set pieces, both of which have been in my head for quite a long time. Even the stuff I wrote today, I knew what needed to happen. So it was a case of, it was more like I needed to download it from my brain than think about it. And that's basically the case with chapter 35 as well. I just need to download it from my brain. Chapter 36 needs a little more thought. I know basically what needs to happen, but haven't thought about the exact sequence. But again, that's not going to be a terribly hard chapter to write. I can't remember what happens in chapter 37 off the top of my head. Chapter 38 is the one I dubbed the chapter of death, in which I show the deaths of all the supporting characters, at least the ones that aren't going to survive. And then chapter 39 is kind of tying up everything, making sure the last few characters that need to survive, and then finally the epilogue showing you what happened to the survivors. And it's actually there's going to be some nice things happening. It's not just going to be bad endings for all the characters. Of my main characters, I thought I was going to kill more than I have done. And in fact, there's only one of the main characters that isn't going to make it to the end of the book alive. And that's a shame. I like the character. It's Mr. Oakley, and I kind of want to find a way to make him survive, but I can't. Anyway, so yes, the first sort of brain download of chapter 34 is sitting in my laptop. So the next thing I need to do is edit it, because of course, as I've said several times before now, I'm on a write edit model. So the next thing I will do, I was going to do some tonight, but I'm not going to now. But tomorrow and the next day, I basically need to do a screen edit and then a paper edit. Now, what's nice about the fact that I finished it today, which if I'm honest, I didn't expect to, it does mean that there's a chance I may finish completely this draft of chapter 34 before I go back to work on Friday. Because if I can do the screen read through tomorrow, the screen edit tomorrow, and then the paper edit the day after, and then I go back to work on Friday, which that means I can get. So initially I thought, because I had a few days where I didn't do that much, I kind of thought I might not get chapter 34 finished before I go back to work, but now there's a very good chance that I will. So I'm exceedingly pleased about that. I'm really motivated. I'm really enjoying doing it. And I'm looking forward to dotting the I's and crossing the T's on chapter 34, making sure the right emotions are in there. Maybe if I've gone a little bit OTT or used some cliches, tidying those up a bit. I often have to do that with emotional scenes because they just fall out of my head, and then when I read them back, I go blah and change it. But yeah, there we go. So what else have I done today? Well, a couple of things. I finished reading The Fellowship of the Ring. I haven't read any of the Lord of the Rings for quite a long time. In fact, probably not since the movies have been out, so that is a long time. I've read it several times when I was younger, but I've really enjoyed it because I kind of forgot how much they cut out of the movies. And so the movies are very accurate, but there are bits they cut out. So actually, when I was reading the sections with Tom Bombadil and the Barrow Downs, it was like finding a little bit of the story that I didn't know as well. And I really enjoyed reading those bits, although I've enjoyed reading all of it. The other thing I did today, I bought myself a few weeks ago a lovely sun lounger, but there's a problem with that. I don't like lounging in the sun. I also have a lovely umbrella that I could use to prevent myself from lounging in the sun. I can lounge in the shade, but I didn't have a stand for it. So where me and Tiny met to do the writing in the same city, there is a John Lewis. So I got this really decent umbrella stand, ordered it, paid for it, and then went and collected it after we'd finished writing. So yeah, very pleased with how productive my day's been. I would very much encourage, if anybody wants to give me some thoughts on what I might do for my 100th show, which is very, very soon, actually. Tani did suggest something, which I think is quite a good idea, and that's to basically go through episode 1 and say, and just kind of, because in that I kind of said why I was doing the podcast and what I hoped to get out of it. And I suppose I could just play clips of that and discuss whether I feel I have managed to do those things. But I do feel very positive. I do feel this, even there's only a couple of people listening to it, me saying I'll do something on here does hold me accountable, and I am getting a lot more done than I think I would have done without this. As I've said a few times before, when my friend Penny died, I think it's very likely I would have gone into a pit of gloom and despair for several months, and certainly wouldn't be writing now this close to that happening if this podcast didn't exist. So yep, I'll be back at some point tomorrow. Thank you very much for listening. Take care, thank you, and bye-bye. You have been listening to The Diary of a Wannabe Writer, presented by Richard A. Boxall. Thank you for tuning in to my random ramblings, and if you'd like to know more about me or my projects, visit my link tree at linktr.ee/Richard Wright, capital R, capital W. Thank you for listening.